Hi there, I'm here to do a tag to César of 78 Puertas Tarot Collection Top Decks. And I think there's like 20 prompts. There's a lot. Maybe there's 21. And I first saw it on Masha's channel. So I will link her channel down below and César's channel down below too. And here are the prompts. First prompt was, what was your very first tarot deck ever? And for me, that was Tarot Balby. And this was actually my mom's deck. And then I ended up getting it. And this is just a beautiful deck, but I did not know how to read this deck. It was my first one. And I was fascinated with it. And there's a little booklet that came in it. And so I use that to try and read with it, but this is a little bit of a complicated deck. And it was not the easiest thing to read with in the world. But I enjoyed it. And it was kind of got me started on my path. And it is a Marseille, type deck, but not a Marseille deck. It definitely just goes its own way and does its own thing. I loved the colors in it. I thought the colors were just gorgeous. And I like the looks of the people. I just thought it was a beautiful deck. And it was very mysterious and fascinating. And at first it was in the cabinet I wasn't supposed to touch. So of course, as kids, you always just want to look at that. And sorry if it's loud. There's a lot going on around here because it's Memorial Day weekend. And so, because everybody has a long weekend, it's a lot of people staying up late tonight. Because it's evening now when I'm filming. I had a busy day. I had a lot of family stuff going on. Anyway, this is a gorgeous deck. And it was my very first deck ever, the Tarot Balby. This is a Spanish deck, and it is out of print, I think, at this point, but I think it's fairly easy to get if you like it. Okay, next prompt. Which is your most recent deck? So, I'm trying not to buy decks. Excuse me. But I heard this deck is going out of print. And I already have this one, the first edition of the El Goliath Tarot. I'll show you this. I haven't opened the other one yet. And I love this one, so I was always just kind of thinking, oh, I don't need the other one. But honestly, this one's a little hard to shuffle because it's kind of big. I like that it's glossy, but I think the second edition maybe is matte. So I just had never got the second edition because I was so happy with this one. But I heard it was not going to be printed anymore, and I had already planned on buying it at Thanksgiving because at Thanksgiving they always have a sale. And so I thought, well, I'll just buy it at Thanksgiving because I really wanted to check it out. And I don't know which one I'll keep or if I want both or what I'm going to do. But I love using this deck. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try the second one. So we will quickly open that. And I know this isn't everybody's thing. And see what we think. I'll just I don't know anybody in person that has this deck, weirdly. Everybody I know has the first edition. Oh, wow. That's a big guidebook here. I don't think I've ever even looked at a walkthrough. No, that is huge. Okay. And then the cards are... Oh, they're way smaller. I don't think I want to open it right now, but... And they do look like they are matte instead of glossy. So they're a lot smaller. So that is my most recent tarot deck. And I do love the backs on these. They're beautiful. Okay, and that is why I bought a deck right now when I'm trying to go through all the decks that I got when I was back home in Hawaii. And I haven't even used them all yet. So I'm just trying not to buy new decks. I did get a bunch of oracles in that I'll just do a video about those. That were like Kickstarters or pre-orders. Oh, Goliath. And so I'll show you those, but I'm trying to stick to tarot right now. Okay, next prompt is which tarot deck has the best colors? And I think for a commercially made deck, this Tarot Mécanique by Paul Grimaud and John Bouchard, it's a Grimaud deck. This tarot deck has incredible colors, and I love the colors in this. I think it's just gorgeous. You can tell I like the bright, like fluorescent pops of color. I like the pinks in this. I like the blues in this. This is just incredibly pretty colors. So one of my favorites for the color palette. This deck is out of print, unfortunately. But I see it around fairly often for under $100, or right around $100, which I know is a lot. But it was a mass market deck, so there's a lot of them. It's not that hard to find. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to show you a handmade deck. That is my very favorite. And this is a Carol Hertzer deck. And it's an Aura Shadows deck. Now, this deck is a few years old. I think this one is fluorescent and glitter. And it's spectacular. And I don't know if you can tell how beautiful it is because it's evening here. And so the sun won't be on it. Maybe I'll show you in the sun sometime. Anyway, this deck, it just glows. And on top of that, it has glitter on it. And I don't know if you can really see it right now. But it is just fabulous. Just the colors are amazing on it. And fluorescent and glitter are so amazing together. I should film this part during the day. But just in case, take my word for it. It's pretty spectacular. And I love the blue glitter backs. The backs are just glitter. All right, that is Carol Hertzer hand paints decks, and then she does the lamination herself. She cuts them, I think, and laminates them herself. I don't know how she does it, but her work is just so amazing. And her decks end up being waterproof because of the lamination, so it's really cool. And they all come with this handmade bag. Each one is different. All right, next prompt. What tarot deck has the best faces? So it's hard for me to choose this, but I'm going to choose the Efflorescent Tarot. And this is the reason I'm choosing this one is because the faces are so emo. And people just look so like, oh, it's the end of the world in it. This is by Peony Archer. But look at that knight. He just looks angry. And they're sharing cups, but they're just gloomy. And the King of Pentacles looks like they're going to cry. The Emperor doesn't look too sad. And this one is pretty. The Seven of Pentacles is okay. But some of them I'll show you are just, like you're just like, really? Is it that bad? Temperance. Look at how sad Temperance looks. Queen of Cups looks like she's going to cry. Four of Cups. Things are not looking good. Five of Cups. Oh, well, I mean, okay. 3 cups are spilled, but still. This one's not terrible. Yeah, he's not too bad either. Page of Cups. We're looking pretty forlorn. Sun. It should be a happy day, but even the Sun people don't look good. Or they look good. The faces look great. They just look really depressed. Or kind of just like, not even depressed, just like, things are not going my way. And so, it's such an expressive deck. I just thought I'd show it. Because the faces are really amazing in it. Even look at the High Priestess. Not in a happy mood. Queen of Swords. The Magician. Even Strength looks like... The Lion looks like he's growling. Page of Wands. Well, we're stealing swords, but we're not happy about it. So that is one of my best faces, the Efflorescent Tarot. And this deck is coming back into print, or it's on Kickstarter right now. It hasn't been sent out, but it's been funded. It should be out pretty soon. So if you like that, you'll be able to get it. Which is your largest tarot deck? So I think my largest deck, that's commercial anyway, is probably the Alchemical Visions Tarot, or that's mass market. This deck is huge. I'll grab a card. This is it compared to the Balby. And it was a little shock. I didn't know. I got this quite a few years ago, but I didn't know that it was going to be so big. It's so huge. And I guess you can see the pictures really good. But it's so big. I'll show you a few of the cards. So this came out, I think, right before we were in the pandemic. And I just, when I ordered it, I didn't realize it was going to be this large. I guess I should have paid more attention. There weren't very many large decks around when I ordered this. It is a great deck. It's very esoteric. And it's beautiful. It's just hard to do a reading with cards this big. Okay, so that's the biggest one. I think that is a mass market deck. I think my biggest one overall is a Carol Hertzer deck. This is an old one. And this is Le Tarot Reveal by Susan Kloster, but Carol Hertzer painted it in the late 80s. And it's a very large deck. And I don't know, I don't think you can see how pretty it is. But it is a gorgeous deck. It's got glitter on it. I probably can't see it right now. And the cards are kind of floppy. Because they're laminated. But they've held up for a long time. They hold up well. So I feel I was kind of lucky to get that one. Luckily she hadn't sold that when I got it. Oh, also, I have a Golden Dawn deck. Let's It's like, it's this one, the Temple Tarot Meditation deck by Henry Weindrich and Nick Farrell. These are probably, I'm not sure, this might be bigger. Is that bigger? Yeah, that one's bigger. So these are huge. This is a majors only deck. And they're meant for meditation work. But it is a really cool deck. But I think maybe this is my biggest deck. It is my biggest deck. I don't think I have anything bigger than this. A lot of big decks, but I think this one just tops them all. All right, that one is huge. Next prompt, what is your smallest tarot deck? So I brought out these two decks. I'm not sure which is the smallest one. They're both super tiny. I'll show you next to the Balby. The Balby is actually a little bit smaller than a regular deck. Oh, this is such a cute deck. So that, look how small they are. So it's great because if you want to do a reading, you can just lay out a ton of cards. It's really tiny. And the cardstock's pretty thin, so you have to be careful when you shuffle it. But it is, I love it. I think it's really cool. I don't use it a ton because it is really small, but it is something great if you wanted to just carry with you somewhere. So that's the Honasa house. Okay, and then we'll compare the Honasa house with, we'll compare the Honasa house Little Edition compared to the Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's Tarot. And we have a little skull. This is a little travel edition. I'm not sure which one of these. Oh, this one looks smaller even. Yeah, this is even smaller. So I've brought this places a couple times. I'll move this one. It is super sweet. It is back in order right now. It again is a little bit hard to shuffle. But it works and it's really cute and it's really tiny. So those two are so tiny. They're almost so tiny they're hard to use, but they remind me of little doll decks and I love having them. Kind of little collector's items though. Super sweet. And this you can actually bring with you somewhere. But this came out at Halloween one year. I'm super stoked to have it. All right, next prompt. What is your most worn out tarot deck? And that is the Fantastical Tarot by Nathalie Hertz. And the reason this one is so worn out is because I did cattle call readings with it over and over and over again. And it was my favorite deck for a lot of years. And I just used it and used it and used it just all the time. And people didn't necessarily want me to read for them with this deck, but they got to read, if they came to me, they got a reading with this deck. Or once in a while they could have one with Tarot of the Cat People, which they also didn't always want. And you know, of course now I would read with whatever people wanted, but I was young, and at that time I just was going to read with what I wanted to read with. And this was a deck that I was absolutely in love with. So I used it over and over and over again and wore it out. But I put it away for probably more than 10 years and got it back out sometime during the pandemic. I think about 2020 when I was showing somebody. Oh, and I was telling him how over it I had been for so many years. And then I pulled it out, started using it again. How, it's only been a few years. I love it again. So now it's getting even more use. But my Toth, I used the Toth and learned on that and had people teaching me on that for 10 years. But I had more than one deck. I had multiple decks. So they didn't get as worn. Only had one of these. Next prompt. What is your most esoteric deck? So I think for me, it's probably Tarot of the Spirit because there's so many layers to this deck. I took it with me. I talked about this last year at the beginning. Was it last year? I think it was either 2022 or 2023. I spent quite a bit of time over at the coast because my dad had a stroke. And I brought this book. And then I also have, and this is the guidebook for the deck. I also have 3 other books that are in color and have like a ton of information in them. I'll show you in a little bit. Pamela Eakins and her daughter have gone into great depths with this deck. And this version, I have a whole bunch of this newer version. Everything is layered onto the Kabbalah or Tree of Life. So you can see, and it comes with this. Everything fits. You can see how everything is aligned. It's really cool. And there's reasons for everything. And I have quite a few esoteric decks. But here's the thing about esoteric decks. You can only use that information if you have somebody to teach you or information about them. So with the Toth, it's a very esoteric deck. And that one, I had people to teach me how to use it for 10 years. And so that, I think, that was really the first deck that I ever learned to read on, even though the Balby was my first deck. When you have somebody teaching you, you learn so much because you can read and you can learn from them. And if you get stuck, you have somebody to help you. This one, there's Pretty Thorough Books. And now I think you can get the triple book on Kindle. So there's just so much information you can learn. You could study this deck forever. What tarot deck is the best one for shadow work? For me, this was a deck that I thought I would never, ever want. And so I hadn't backed it on Kickstarter, didn't pre-order it, anything. And then there was a day that Dawn Michelle had it on her channel, playing with it. And I fell in love with it. And I ordered it. And I absolutely love this deck. And I don't seek out doing shadow work with it. But that naturally comes up some of the time just because this deck was created about sleep paralysis. The creator has sleep paralysis, was my understanding. Nicholas Bruno. And so that's the space this deck was created out of. But it just seems to be perfect for shadow work. And it's kind of open-ended. I absolutely love this deck. It freaks people out. And it freaked me out at first, too. But like, no one can say it isn't powerful. And the photography is very well done. And the RWS meanings are very well done. Just like, it's an incredible deck. I only have the photography version of it, but boy, is it powerful. Anyway, so amazing if you wanted to just do some shadow work. I don't usually just seek that out, but some people like to do that. So, what are the best court cards? And for me, hands down, they are the Thoth court cards. And this is the Llewellyn box. It's an old tarot. I'm going to just try and find all the court cards. So this one has a bit more orange and browns. But I think the Thoth court cards are the most beautiful court cards out there, and I love them. And it's also the deck I learned to read on, so that probably plays a part. But they are the court cards to me. But I do have another deck I'm going to show you. These court cards are just spectacular. And there's so much movement in them. So I love the Thoth court cards. And I don't think I can ever love anything as much as these cards or any other system of court cards in any other deck. I just think they're spectacular. And I have all different Thoth decks. This is one of my favorites of all time. I love it. And the Princess of Wands, look how good that is. And the Queen of Swords. This is my birth card. Princess of Dis. Oh, they're gorgeous. Okay, so that is my favorite court cards. Another group of court cards I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you the tin version because I think that's the easiest to get at this moment in time. Although the big ones you could see better. But so these are court cards that I used. They were it was one of my very first decks. And so the Barbara Walker court cards are so meaningful to me. And I also just think they're so beautiful. And I love them. I think they're in my top 4. And I have 4 that are kind of equal, so it's hard. But I absolutely adore the Barbara Walker court cards. And one more group of court cards that I love is the Tabula Mundi. I'm sure this is no surprise. I love using these. This is just that deck. You know how you have those decks that you just pick up and you can read with them, and it just makes sense? Everybody should have decks like that. And even though the Tabula Mundi mixes the Thoth and the RWS, it does it in a way that just makes sense. And this was just one of those decks I could pick up out of the box and read with it. And I just knew the meanings. And I love having a deck like that. The Rosetta was also that way for me. I like the quartz in the Tabula Mundi better than I like the quartz in the Rosetta, though. Even though I love the Rosetta, the quartz, I like the Tabula Mundi better. But my favorite is the Toth, and always will be. I'm going to take a break and come back and film in the morning because it's starting to get dark. Just in case. When I really want to know something, I often just use my Toth. And I don't ever just intend to do shadow work. But if I just want to know what's going on, this is the deck I often go to. And I'm sure you've seen this a million times. It was the deck I learned to read. It was the deck that I learned to read on. And it was also a deck that I had people to help me read for years and years. So if I ever had a question, I always had people to go to because everybody read with this deck that I was around. Sometimes people don't like things that Aleister Crowley did, or they don't like him. So I grew up with a family who was super into Crowley. My dad had like 666 on one of his cars. And so I grew up thinking he was great. I think everybody does not think that about what decks have the best back design. And I like the Marseille backs, and I really love the Arnaud and Info 1801 by Yves Renaud. I love the backs on this deck. I think I love the color, I love the pattern, and I love the simplicity of it. So I'm a big fan of those. I love the backs of Vichy's Tarot de Marseille. The green with the black. And those are not reversible. That's the only thing. If you want reversible, then these are not. The Arnaud and Info is reversible. But rest in peace, Mr. Vichy. So if you want an esoteric back, the Tabula Mundi Tarot, this is the silver edition. This is a gorgeous deck. I won't do a walkthrough of it right now, but this is just a beautiful deck. And the backs have so much meaning. They say abrahadabra, and it goes down to A. And there's just a lot here. But that is a busy back, so it depends on if you want a busy back. Oh, and if you like the ocean, do I have it out here? I'll be right back. So this is the Flow Tarot. I love the backs of this deck. I love the ocean feeling and the wave breaking. Masha had a deck that had the most gorgeous backs I'd ever seen. It looked like it was handmade for her. Anyway, the Flow Tarot is a really cool deck. And it has beautiful backs. So those are some backs, depending on what you like. What tarot deck has the best cardstock? And this is one I showed last month. The Sea Witch. Oh my gosh. The cardstock on this is just fantastic. It's this slick kind of linen finish. And it just is amazing. It shuffles great. I love the feel of it. It's really special. Anyway, it's amazing. And you can see it's got that kind of linen-y finish, but these are large cards. So that is something that this is the deluxe linen edition, but I think the cardstock on this is just amazing. I talked about this deck a lot last month, but I don't think I talked about the cardstock that much. But I talked a lot about it in my wrap-ups. I won't go into detail. And then the other one that just has delicious cardstock is the Marco Benedetti Metelli deck. Any of these handmade decks are just going to have fantastic cardstock, and they shuffle like dreams. And that's because they're on this paper that is just fantastic. But anyway, those are amazing decks, and I love the cardstock on them. I love a lot of cardstock, but these handmade decks are definitely probably the best. Which tarot deck has the most silky cardstock? So for me, that is the Mountain Dream Tarot by B Metals. This is an original second edition. And the cardstock on this, I don't know if you can tell. It's weird. It looks almost like an actual photograph, but the cardstock is just, it's a dream. It's the Mountain Dream. But anyway, the cardstock is just fantastic. I do not have an original of the first edition. I have the copy of the first edition, but this deck also just, it's just got the silkiest, amazing cardstock. So it's my choice for a silky cardstock. It's just beautiful. It's quite a deck. And I feel kind of lucky that I have the second edition. I wish I had the first original one. I'm guessing the cardstock's delicious. Oh, what tarot deck has the best sound when you shuffle it? Any one of those would work. Which of your tarot decks is the most misunderstood? So, I think the Gabbarino, Tarocco di Gabbarino, because it is an Atea, for me is a hard deck to read, and there isn't a lot of information on how to read it. It's a beautiful deck, but it follows the Atea system, which I don't really know, and I just need to take some time and get to know that. But it's an Atea deck. So for me, the Atea system right now is the hardest one to understand because I haven't spent enough time to really know that system yet. So this deck is harder to read than it would be if I knew the system. Anyway. Another deck I have that it's an Atea system. I'm better at reading because it's kind of blends the Atea system with some of the other systems I know more. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Oh, and the other, I think the deck that other people misunderstand the most, I think it could be Marseille and it could be Thoth. And people have a hard time with both of those systems if they learned on a different system. What is your most ancient tarot deck? Oh, this is another one. It could be one of the hardest systems to read. This is the Visconti Sforza. And I'm sure probably like it is one of the oldest decks. So for a lot of people, I think this is going to be one of their oldest ones. So this is a beautiful deck, but if you don't know Marseille, this can be hard to read. Oh, this is my most historical. Sorry, I got mixed up there. So this is my most historical deck because it's my old, and this is a reproduction. So if you want a deck that isn't a reproduction and you just want an old deck that I have one that is coming up. But I love this deck. I think it's beautiful, but I don't usually read with it. It's kind of more of a collector's item. But I do think it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. I mean, Masha, I think, showed like pictures from where she saw it in the museum, where it was the actual gold. It looked really gorgeous. All right, that's the Visconti Sforza, and this one is the Il Meneghello version. Okay. Which deck was the most surprising, good or bad? So for a modern imprint deck, I'm going to say Bad Girl Tarot, because I just thought it was cute and sassy, and I would just get it because I thought it was just kind of punky. But I love reading with it, and so I was surprised how much I enjoyed this deck. And it is an indie deck. These go in and out of print, so sometimes they're in print. Sometimes the Oracle's in print, sometimes the Tarot's in print. But just keep your eye out, because if it is out of print right now, it'll come back. I think it's actually in print again right now. I think it was out of print for a bit. And I think the Oracle might be out of print now. But these decks are great, and they're just really fun, and they're sassy and cute, but they also just read great. And so that was a little bit of a surprise. So for a more modern one, the Bad Girl Tarot, and for something that just like I got and just fell in love with it and it took my breath away, the Carol Hertzer decks. And I'm going to show this now that there's some sun, because I was filming this last night where there was no sun. And this is a fluorescent and glitter deck, but I think you might be able to see it better today. These, when I first saw her decks and first held them in my hand, I think that surprised me the most, because they're just amazing. They're just beautiful decks. So I think it was probably this deck that has surprised me the most. And that is a little bit of a hard question, because decks surprise you when you work with them. And sometimes you don't even know how much they're going to surprise you. Like Benabelle's deck surprised me when I worked with it. And part of it is spending time with it. Tarot of the Spirit surprised me. But sometimes the surprise is working with the deck and then seeing what the deck can do. The Toth totally surprised me when I started learning on it. Now, it doesn't really surprise me anymore, but it can still show me new things. But it's just, I guess this was surprising because it was so beautiful. And hopefully you can see some of it. I don't know if the camera picks up how gorgeous it is. But it is stunning. And then, I don't know, the backs on this are incredibly beautiful too. All her decks are amazing. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. A helicopter flew over. So, what deck has the best purchase story? So for me, it is the Grand Tarot Bling, because I had this one first, and this one was starting to get kind of worn, and the gold is starting to wear off on it. This is my oldest deck, by the way. Also, a deck that is somewhat difficult to read with. because it combines systems. It uses mainly the Atea, uses some Marseille. It's got an astrological component, but it's not the traditional one that I use. So it's just a little challenging to read, but I love the deck, and I wanted to get another copy of it because I didn't want to just wear this one out. And this was not super popular at the time. And we were in France at the time, and somebody said, oh, you can just order it off of Amazon. They did a reprint. So I was like, are you kidding me? Because I was going into all these stores and looking for a copy of it. And then someone was like, just order it off Amazon. So I just ordered this off Amazon. And I didn't have to pay shipping or anything. Now, I haven't used this because it's perfect because I got it brand new. It still has the guidebook. It's not numbered and it's not old. It's the brand new version. And it's got the square corners on the new version, but I think it was like 85 pounds at the time, which is probably, it was quite expensive because I think that's probably darn near $100 US at the time. But it's an identical copy. I don't know how they did this. I mean, it's super white and it looks different. I should just show you the difference in the colors and stuff. But this is a perfect deck that I just found off Amazon. That was probably, I don't know, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago when we got that. It was definitely before the pandemic. So it looks pretty close. This one has rounded corners. They both have gold gilding. It's very similar. So you can find this version of the deck nowadays for, I don't know, somewhere between probably $150 to $200. I don't know. I don't think you can get it off Amazon right now. I think it went out of print a couple of years ago. But you can find this version of it for pretty reasonably priced. And it just comes in this, like, it's not an expensive black box. This version is harder to find and probably worth quite a bit more money, but it's very similar. And this version was numbered. And this is much older. This was made in the 60s. Okay, what deck to use for self-readings? I just keep it in this bag. For self-readings, if I really want to know the answer to something, I use one of 3 decks. I use my Thoth, which I've shown. I was going to show you a different version of this. But anyway, this is one that I just took to New York. I only took 1 deck, but I took this because I don't worry about it. It's just in this old box. I throw it in here. It's easy to take with me. And then another deck I use for self-readings if I'm home. I use my Rosetta. Which is a Thoth deck. And I like this one. I can take it around town because I can take it to the bar. It has a plastic coating on it. Follows the Thoth system. It's very similar, so it's easy to read. And I love it. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. It's super special to me, and it's beautiful, and it's just wonderful. So that is my Rosetta. And then the other one that I'll often read for myself with is my Tabula Mundi. And this is not the one I usually use. I don't usually use my silver one, but I'm going to show it to you because I have it out here. So this is also a Thoth-based deck, and it pretty much follows the Thoth system. So the some of the pictures are slightly different, and there's a little bit more in them, or there's different things in them, because it's Moline's vision. And this is a particularly beautiful version, but it's easy for me to read, and it gives me a little bit of a different perspective than the plain old Thoth. So I often read for myself with this one, and I will often just throw in, do I have the small one out here? Yeah, I'll show you the small one in a minute. I love this card. Everybody does such weird things with keeping the Three of Swords somewhat similar, but of course she did something different. And I've shown this deck a bunch, and I used it quite a bit in my deck and walk videos. But this one is not the one I often read, because I kind of try and keep this one nicer because it's got the silver edges. I have multiple versions of this deck. So that's the big version. Oh, and then here's a little teeny one. Like, I'll just take this when I go places, because I can just throw it in my purse. Oh, I should probably do that travel edition. I'll show you the difference in size. Quite a difference in size. But this is easy to read with, and it's fun to take along, and it's just little and cute and available. So if you like reading with the Thoth system and you love this artwork, I love her art. I fell in love with this the moment I saw it. Then this is a great deck to read with. Which is the most difficult tarot deck to be mastered? Oh, I think I messed up the prompts. I meant to say this was the most difficult deck to be mastered. Probably the most misunderstood deck. What deck is the best overall? So I love these three. These are my three best overall. I love all my decks though, so I can't really say that, but these are the ones I'm so comfortable with reading. So in some ways, I think they're the best. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.